all day. My name is Katie Knight. I'm a member of Big Sky Unitarian Universalist, and I will be leading the service today along with support from our worship liaison, one of the members of our amazing worship committee that puts together these services all year long, because we are a lay-led fellowship. As you are welcome here. Visitor, friend, or longtime member, you are welcome here. With little children, or your partner, or alone, we joyfully welcome you here. You are welcome here as believer or doubter, as joiner or loner. You are welcome here. Feeling a part of us or not, full of energy or not, seeking a vision or a rest, you are welcome to join us as you are. We acknowledge that we are in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish, Nez Perce, Blackfeet, Anishinaabe people who shared the Helena Valley as hunting grounds. The indigenous story of the Helena Valley began long before the arrival of Europeans. We honor those who walked here before us. We honor the path they have shown us in caring for this place for generations to come. We strive for justice and fair relations with their descendants. And now, Karen will help us with any announcements that are not on the back of the order of service or were not in the email, or just an important reminder.
Are there announcements? Yes, Catherine.
And this time I'm staying within the rules. We are transitioning the coffee group, the email list, to the workspace. And it's going to be a new address, Kufi, how to spell it right, CUUEFE at bigskyuu.org. And so if anyone would like to be a part of that list, we are transferring the former members to the list, but if you want to be added, please send an email to fellowship@bigskyuu.org, and I'll make sure that you're on. So that'll be happening this week.
Other announcements? Okay.
Then it's time to light the chalice, and Mackenzie is going to do the honors as we read together from the order of service, a chalice lighting for liminal times. I had to look up that word some years ago, but I think it's very, very prophetic for the time in which we're living, and it's by Summer Al-Bayati, who is our representative at the Pacific Western District of the UU. She was here with us this fall for our retreat. So let's read together. In betwixt and in between, we move in the liminal spaces that show shades of what can become, what can be. We light this chalice as a symbol of courage to move into that time of this and that, and not this and not that, with patience and faith and love and hope that this time will pass. Like the sun that moves in between rising and setting, reminding us that beauty resounds in betwixt and in between. And now we will be singing a hymn together. It's number 34 in Singing the Living Tradition, the big, thick, gray book. And Judy McKenzie and Cheryl McKinty will lead us in our music. Did I say number 34?
Yes. Feel free to stand as you are able. Thank you.
would like to invite the young and the young at heart to come forward to, for the story of all ages, more of a discussion. And if the kids aren't going to carry it, you adults have to. Because I'm asking a few questions here. Thanks, girls. Okay. I'm a visual person, so I have some pictures that will be going through the service here today. I hope they sync mostly with my message, but in some cases they are particularly relevant. And so for the story today, I didn't really want to read a book. There was nothing that was really spot on connecting to my message. So I want to ask, what is wisdom? What is wisdom? And pretty soon I'm going to ask, and where do you get wisdom? So do any of you young people have a thought?
This is Mackenzie, and I think wisdom can come from one way, from making mistakes and recognizing those mistakes and trying something new moving forward, or learning from others and watching others to determine what is quote unquote right, and helping others and caring for others.
Okay, wasn't the first thing supposed to be what wisdom is, and then where it comes from?
What is wisdom?
I think wisdom is amassing and listening more than anything, and then picking the moment to speak or to share when there's something to add or something to protect. This is vague.
Okay, and has anyone ever passed wisdom to you? It's just something I want you to sit with. I'm going to pass a little wisdom on that I got from this source. This is my mom and dad, and I want to read to you. Well, let me tell you first what's in the pictures, and you gals can see them up here. This is my parents sitting in the window of a log lodge that we built in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan to create a college campus in the forest where members from the Hiram College community could come up and learn together in community. And this was a project of my parents that they worked on building for well over 20 years. Here, this shows you the lodge. They were sitting in that middle window right there at the time that we were putting the shingles on the roof, and you can see the solar panels, the little bit of the windmill. It was totally off grid. And this is the front of the lodge. Many years later, in 2014, when Judy and I visited them there, and there's my folks standing on the porch of the lodge, so you can see the lake, Cherry Lake, behind them. So my dad had a vision, and he wrote a blessing that he liked to convey to people who came. And even if you haven't been in the North Woods on these little lakes, you've been in some, no doubt, beautiful natural space. And so I think this will resonate with you. Blessings for your time at Northwoods Field Station. May the sunrise give birth to your new day. May your spirits rise on the wings of an eagle. May you watch fish rise in still water. May good food inspire you to feed the hungry. May the mosquitoes be few. May the berries be plentiful and big. May you see the bear at a distance. May hot days be cooled by gentle breezes. May you be strengthened in sad times by the wail of the loon. May your joys be serenaded by the loon's yodel overhead. May the sight of a doe and fawn silence your fears. May sunsets give you hope for tomorrow. May your evenings be warmed by friends around the fire. May a whippoorwill awaken you to the aurora borealis. May soft rains come at night. May you know the wonder of love. May there be peace in the forest and in the world. May a glimpse of the simple life in the North Woods make you into a grateful person and help you realize that you do not need most of what you think you want, and that happiness is in simplicity and generosity. So that's the wisdom I wanted to share. And I guess we're not going to sing the children out because we'd like you to stay with us today. Okay. Now we are going to hear from Becky Warren about why I pledge. Do you want it in the stand, or should I hand it to you? Okay.
Well, part of why I pledge is because of words like that. That was really a beautiful blessing, really meaningful. I've been a member of this fellowship for about 20 years, and I have it dated because I have my original order of service, which was in Comic Sans on a green piece of paper with my little drawings of flowers. And fortunately, that was soon replaced by Bill and Joyce Cronholm's bringing in of the widely used order of service that's used across the U.S. that we're using today in our fellowship. I always appreciate being asked to do a pledge speech because it causes me to reflect on why I've given so much time and money to our fellowship. So thank you, Ken, for asking me to speak today. I spend more time on our fellowship in both time and treasure than I spend on any other community organization. Why? Gemma mentioned the other day how fortunate she felt to have been raised with the 7 principles. Well, they weren't introduced until 1985, long after I participated in childhood RE at a church that at that time was not UU. However, my parish's 60s and 70s religious ed did center around values clarification, right relationship, media literacy, and service. And my sanctuary experience included updated hymns and visiting folk musicians. I am grateful. Yes, my parents directly communicated their values to me. But there was something powerful about being surrounded by a creative community that lived and discussed those values. So I give because I learn. Every time I write a message and every time I listen to one of your inspired talks, your passions and your heartfelt stories. And I give because I want there to be a liberal, non-Christian religious community in Helena, in Montana, a place for us to question, a place for those of us who no longer find the stories of the Bible relatable, a place for queer folk who may not feel welcome in other faiths, a place that inspires us to action. And as Catherine said last week, a place for us to practice the art of being human in our imperfect community where we all make mistakes. You may remember that it was my 8-year-old daughter, Ellie, now 32, who initially asked to attend church because she was curious and because she's naturally inclined to explore community and faith. And finally, after experimenting with a mainstream church, it was Ellie who said, I just can't throw the Jesus ball around RE one more Sunday because I can't believe in the words that the kids are writing on the ball. So I want this community to be there for the Ellies of the world, for the questioning and the quirky who can't fit into anyone else's mold. I want this community to be there for support and inspiration for all of you who work through climate, social, and political activism to make this world a better place. And so, I have made a covenant with myself and with you that I will keep on participating and keep on giving for all of us. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Becky. And now we will have the offering, and following the collection plate, we will be singing Thank You for Your Loving Hands on page 25 in the Open Your Heart songbook. Thank you for your gifts this day and for all the gifts of action that make this community possible. If you are our guest this morning, please just remain our guest. Your presence is your gift to us. We're going to do a responsive reading. It's number 441 in Singing the Living Tradition, but I want to preface it with something. So this is called To Worship, and there's some words in UU that not everybody resonates with, and worship is one of them, church is one of them, God is a big one. And I was tempted to go into all of those, but I'm limiting my linguistic enthusiasm to one, and looking at the origin of the word worship as a verb. It's from around the year 2000, it's Old English, and it means to pay divine honors to conduct religious rites, to participate in religious services. And by 1300, it meant to hold in honor, to treat a parent, a spouse, a friend with due esteem and affection. So that's what we're doing here today. And as a noun, the word worship, also from Middle English, means high respect, honor, fame, a condition of being worthy, dignity, glory, distinction, honor, renown. So when we come together, we are honoring each other and our world. So I will read the bold, and you all can join Karen in reading the italics response. To worship is to stand in awe under a heaven of stars, before a flower, a leaf in sunlight, or a grain of sand.
To worship is to be silent, receptive, before a tree astir with the wind, or the passing shadow of a cloud.
To worship is to work with dedication and with skill. It's to pause from work and listen to a strain of music.
To worship is to sing with the singing beauty of the earth. It is to listen through a storm to the still, small voice within.
Worship is a loneliness-seeking communion. It's a thirsty land crying out for rain.
Worship is kindred fire within our hearts. It moves through the deeds of kindness and through acts of love.
Worship is the mystery within us reaching out to the mystery beyond.
It is an inarticulate silence yearning to speak. It is the window of the moment open to the sky of the eternal.
Thank you, Jacob Trapp, for this piece of writing. And our next hymn is in the Singing the Living tradition. It's number 36. It's This Is Your Ground by Nancy Schimmel, one of my real favorites. And I just imagine myself lying on the earth and connecting. Yeah, it's open. I'm sorry. Open Your Heart Songbook. I said the wrong music book. Open Your Heart, number 36. And Judy Fiel and Mackenzie will lead the music. Please stand if you're willing and able.
Many of you know that Nancy Schimmel is one of my favorite songwriters and a good friend as well. And when I recorded the album Same Old Slippers, I was really sorry that right after I recorded it, she showed me this song. I thought this should really be with that. But it was in time to put it into the Open Your Heart songbook, so I'm glad we get to sing it. Nancy is one of my favorite religious atheists. Like a magnet attracts a pin, the earth attracts us and holds us in. We won't fly off to Venus or Mars, even though we're shooting stars. Lie on the grass and breathe the air. That holds you there, you shining star, you soaring song. This is your ground, here you belong. The days fly by when you're living large, when you're thinking deep and you're taking charge. No matter how high you leap and spin, the planet breathes. the mole in the ground, and you and I. The law of gravity holds the dove, but we could call it love. Lie on the grass and breathe the air. Feel the force that holds you there. You shining star, you soaring song. This is your ground. Here you belong. Through days' confusion and night's alarms, we're held in the planet's leafy arms. When I'm too far to reach your hand, you've got a place to stand. Lie on the grass and breathe the air. Feel the force that holds you there. You shining star, you soaring song. This is your ground. Here you belong. You shining star, you soaring song. This is your ground. Here you belong.
Thank you so much. Doesn't that almost make you feel like you are lying on the ground? Does me. So Karen asked me to give a message today, and it was pretty easy to say yes a few months ago. And I had so many different ideas about this message, but I just really wanted to reflect on my sources. And fortunately, the Unitarian Universalists of America have identified sources. Now, we're pretty familiar with the principles. Becky mentioned them, the 7 principles that are up here on our beautiful screen. We're also pretty familiar now, or getting familiar with the petals of the shared values that the UU Association adopted a couple years ago. But what we have not really paid that much attention to, I think, although maybe by default and not being explicit about it, are the UU sources. And so I looked at those, and I'm going to introduce them briefly here. I'm not going to read the long version of all 6 of these sources, but I do want us to just kind of take them in. I'm sure that you all have many sources of inspiration and understanding that would fit within these 6. So we have direct experience of that transcending mystery. To me, that's lie on the ground, or see the bear, or listen to the loon. That is so direct, right to my soul. We also have words and deeds of prophetic people, like we're going to hear from Ken next week about an important person whose concepts may have impacted us. There's wisdom from the world's religion, all the religions that inspire us in our ethical and spiritual life. And the 4th one, specifically Jewish and Christian teachings that may form the foundation of some of our upbringing. Mine certainly was shaped by a home church in a small village. But I have to say, where, by the way, my dad was an elder and a leader in the church, also a scientist and an atheist. So I don't mind, I have a huge box of my dad's prayers. That's where I started preparing this service, and I was just like, oh, I'm not ready for that. But you can use the word God and still be an atheist, and especially when you love community. Next, we have the humanist teachings that counsel us to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science. Whoa, we need a lot more of that right now, I think. And finally, the spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. Last week, Jean Sweet, in her message, shared with us the transformative awe that was felt by Dr. Mitchell when he was in space as the 6th person to walk on the moon. Seeing the Earth from the moon changed his consciousness. It was an experience of that transcending mystery and wonder that leads us to a renewal of the spirit. So this direct experience, I'm not going to go into depth on this one because we've already kind of had a suggestion. It's also doesn't lend itself to words, but I will just say that I have had occasions late at night in the dark, long after the sunset like this over Fish Lake, when I have swam out alone into the middle of the lake, completely nude, and felt the most amazing connection with the universe. I feel completely vulnerable and tiny, minuscule, and I would look up at the stars, and I just feel at once part of that whole, like there's nothing separating me. So I originally thought I'd share an example of all 6. Well, that we don't have all week. So I've had to select only 3 guides whose understandings, writings, and philosophies shape my worldview. They've given me a sense of place, belonging, and appreciation for the miraculous complexity of life on planet Earth. In my search for truth and meaning, there's 3 women who have really shaped me. And so I've chosen this one, the humanist teachings which counsel us to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science, and warn us against idolatries of the mind and spirit. The first person I want to introduce you to, how many know Lynn Margulis? Okay, because she lives with me. Yeah, Lynn Margulis is a pioneer in the exploration of the origins of life itself. For Lynn Margulis, the question that drove her entire career was, how did bacteria evolve into the nucleated cells and then all the rest of life? So this first one's going to be the nerdiest, I warn you. Her quest began in 1959 when she was a student, and she developed the theory of symbiogenesis. This is a little chart of symbiogenesis. You probably can't see the whole thing, but along the bottom, we have, moving left to right in red, the fermenting bacteria, and then the swimming bacteria. There are the oxygen-breathing bacteria, and the photosynthetic bacteria. Which ones are you carrying in your body right now? Well, we'll learn a little bit about that. While other scientists had proposed similar ideas, Lynn Margulis' paper was completely novel. Oh, I didn't say what her paper was. In '67, she published her landmark paper on the origin of mitosing cells. This paper was the first statement of her endosymbiotic theory that says the nucleated cells originated through a series of symbiotic mergers between already existing bacteria, the ones on the bottom there. And you can see them coming up the chart and merging, even if you can't see all the details there, the writing. While other scientists had proposed similar ideas, Lynn Margulis' paper was completely novel because it put the idea into a geochemical context. She told a narrative about what happened about 2 billion years ago that resulted in the complex cell having a nucleus, mitochondria, and chloroplasts inside its cell wall. Some of these, notably the mitochondria and chloroplasts, were once bacteria on their own. Bacteria merged with each other, then evolved to become plants and animals. The bacteria which entered cells evolved to become mitochondria, the parts of animal cells that use sugars to make energy, and chloroplasts, the parts of plant cells that use sunlight to create energy. This theory was ridiculed by mainstream academic scientists. As Jim Lovelock says, they didn't like it. It changed the rules of the game, and that's not popular ever. But eventually, through genetic analysis, she was vindicated. It was shown that mitochondria did indeed come from oxygen-breathing bacteria, and the chloroplasts did come from cyanobacteria. Now, Margulis studied termites her entire life. There's a beautiful 2.5-hour film. Let's see. I'll go forward one more. This is the cover of the DVD and the study guide that her son, Darren Sagan, his dad was Carl Sagan. You probably heard of him. Anyway, he wrote a beautiful study guide goes with this 2.5-hour film, in which we see Margulis examining a piece of amber that contains a 20-million-year-old termite. So in order to digest wood, the termites rely on a community of symbiotic single-celled protists that live in their gut. But the protists don't do it by themselves. They in turn rely on a community of symbiotic bacteria. Margulis opens the gut of a termite and we see the protists through the microscope. One of these protists, Mixotricha paradoxa, Lynn called the beast with 5 genomes. So in addition to its own genome, it has a spherical black bacteria in its gut and 3 different kinds of bacteria on the surface. And that's just the protist in the belly of the termite. So there's communities of bacteria living within communities of protists that live within termites, that live within communities of termites, that live within ecosystems, and it all makes up Gaia. Together, James Lovelock and Lynn Margulis developed the Gaia hypothesis, Earth as a self-regulating organism. However, they had one important difference of opinion about Gaia, the Gaia hypothesis. Lovelock looks at the Earth as a living organism, but Margulis does not agree. For her, the Gaia hypothesis cannot be reduced to the simple statement, the Earth is an organism. She says, the Earth is a physiological system made up of ecosystems, themselves made up of communities, and that the minimal unit is a cell. Inside each of us are other organisms, our biome. We could not live without these. Most are beneficial, some can make us sick, but when we treat the bad bacteria with penicillin, which is a fungus that attacks bacteria, we can also harm the good bacteria, throwing our system out of balance. So I am totally stunned by the awareness that what I call my body is actually an ecosystem inhabited by millions or even billions of life forms that can interact in harmony. I'm amazed. I'm really grateful for the bacteria that help me digest food and those that became mitochondria, turning that food into energy. So thank you, Lynn Margulis. Oh yeah, there's a picture of possibly our guts and the inhabitants. So it's pretty beautiful. I want to turn now to words and deeds of prophetic people which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. So I'm turning now to Vandana Shiva. I think more people might have heard of her. Yeah, if you are into food sovereignty and food systems, you've probably heard of Vandana Shiva, who began her professional life in quantum physics before focusing her dynamic energy on campaigns against genetic engineering and the negative impacts of globalization. She advocates for the crucial importance of preserving and celebrating biodiversity. Vandana Shiva considers eating to be an ecological and ethical act. Food defines our relationship to health, culture, economics, and political power. However, globalization has separated consumers of food from the farmers who grow food with disastrous results. Vandana Shiva's teaching focuses on preserving biodiversity and the importance of protecting and saving indigenous seeds to promote food sovereignty and to resist corporate control of agriculture, and frankly, to help all of us survive. She's the founder of seed banks like the one you see in this photo. Seeds belong to cultures and they belong to the earth. Capitalist corporations have stolen our inheritance. My understanding of the world was impacted by reading Vandana Shiva's book, Earth Democracy. Here are some concepts from that book. The commons are the highest expression of economic democracy. All beings have a right to knowledge, culture, water, biodiversity, and public services such as health and education. Ownership society seeks to possess all of these, thus enclosing the commons. Corporate globalization is based on new enclosures of the commons, enclosures which imply exclusions and violence. Instead of a culture of abundance, profit-driven globalization creates scarcity. Globalization transforms all beings and resources into commodities. It robs diverse species and people of their rightful share of ecological, cultural, economic, and political space. Globalization patents seeds and converts land, food, and water into commodities, thus privatizing the commons. Ownership of resources by the rich is based on the dispossession of the poor. 2/3 of India make their living from the land. Biopiracy of seeds in India has led to corporate-controlled monoculture agriculture. Farmers were forced to purchase seeds instead of being allowed to save their own seeds. The patented seeds usually require petrochemical fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides, which poison the water as well as people and animals. Thousands of farmers cannot afford to purchase seeds and petrochemical inputs and thus are driven into bankruptcy. Besides the rising cost of inputs, farmers have lost income from the sale of their farm produce. Their profits decreased largely because of policies imposed by corporate globalization, neoliberal structural adjustment policies imposed by the International Monetary Fund and World Bank. The rapid increase in indebtedness is at the root of an epidemic of Indian farmers taking their own lives. I've seen this in other places. It's not just India, it's a global phenomenon. So throughout the world, millions of people deprived of a secure living and identity, their cultures violated, are driven toward extremist, terrorist, fundamentalist movements. A false sense of separation results in polarization and antagonistic behavior. Populist political movements exploit this fear-based fundamentalism. We're seeing it for ourselves here and now. Those who seek control and power manipulate voters by stirring up hate for people they define as different and threatening. The rise of fundamentalism, polarization, and culture wars comes from destruction of earth-based communities, local economies, food and water sovereignty. Vandana Shiva promotes an alternative she calls earth democracy. The principles are so much like the UU principles. All species, people, and cultures have intrinsic worth. The earth community is a democracy of all life. Reverence for life is the foundation. Diversity in nature and culture must be defended. All beings have a natural right to sustenance. Living economies are built on vibrant local economies which support national and global economies. All must have sovereignty of food, water, land, and culture. Self-rule and self-governance is essential for quality of life and freedom. So, I'm going to bring it a little closer to home now with spiritual teaching of earth-centered traditions which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. Don't you love these sources? I mean, doesn't it like, it's so encompassing, but it's also like an arrow pointing to a place to start as you're on those days when you're just like, whoa, what is going on? What does it all mean? So Winona LaDuke is an enrolled member of the Mississippi Band of Anishinaabe. She's a Native American land rights activist. So how many of you've heard of Winona LaDuke, right? If you voted in 1980? Maybe you weren't old enough. Anyway, she's an environmentalist, economist, politician, and author. She spent her career working on national and local levels to advocate, raise public support, and create funding for environmental groups. A graduate of Harvard and Antioch Universities, LaDuke has become known as a voice for indigenous, economic, and environmental concerns around the globe. At the age of 18, she spoke to the UN regarding contamination of Navajo lands by uranium mining. She went on to document and expose environmental racism in her book, All Our Relations. She believes mines, dams, and pipelines threaten indigenous communities and all life. Likewise, the impact of climate crisis strikes indigenous and land-based communities disproportionately. The protection of the earth, the environment, and indigenous sovereignty is one and the same mission. In 1996, and again in 2000, oh, I guess I had my dates wrong, LaDuke was a vice presidential candidate joining Ralph Nader in the Green Party ticket. She's a mother of 3 and several more adopted kids and grandkids. She's written extensively on Native American and environmental issues. After she graduated from Harvard, LaDuke moved to the White Earth Ojibwe Reservation in Minnesota, her father's home, where she became a principal of the reservation high school. There, she quickly became involved in a lawsuit to recover lands promised to the Anishinaabe people by an 1867 federal treaty. After 4 years of litigation, the case was dismissed, prompting LaDuke to found the White Earth Land Recovery Project. The project's mission centers on land recovery, buying back land from people who had acquired it after the Allotment Act, the Dawes Act, which was a big scam to deprive Native people on reservations of their land. They work on preservation and restoration of traditional practices and the strengthening of spiritual and cultural heritage. They use the land they buy to generate wind energy. They've helped protect the local rice crop from patenting and genetic engineering. Let's see, there's the, and they encourage consumption of traditional foods to combat rising rates of type 2 diabetes. Like about 1/3 of the people on the reservation, like many others, White Earth has about 1/3 diabetes rate because of the terrible diet imposed by colonization. And they also run a diaper service that saves money and alleviates waste from disposable diapers. I'm gonna go back for a minute. Yeah. So Winona's Hemp and Heritage Farm is her latest endeavor. A farm and nonprofit agency, its mission is to create an indigenous women-led economy based on local food, energy, and fiber. Fiber that's kind to the earth. So she says for 4 acres of hemp grown in one season, you can build an entire house using hempcrete. So it's a way to also save forests. Winona LaDuke describes a fundamental concept of her people. I've heard her talk about this. I've been able to hear her speak a couple of different times in Minnesota and Michigan. The concept is Manadu. Manadu says that all elements have spiritual energy, Manadu. It's a widely used term for a spirit, spiritual force, or mystery. The creator is called Gitche Manadu, or Great Spirit. I think Lynn Margulis would like this a lot. So humans have a covenant with the earth. Our ancestors made agreement to take care of this water and land forever together. And now is the time for us to do that. So, that's the sugar bush, the traditional sugar bush of the Anishinaabe, and then the ongoing collection of maple sap to create sugar in the spring, or syrup. LaDuke was a leader in the protest against Enbridge's Pipeline 3 that was going to go through the White Earth Reservation. Against their protest, the disastrous pipeline became operational in 2021. It travels under 22 rivers in Minnesota alone, as well as crossing more than 200 bodies of water. It tramples on long-standing treaty rights. Line 3 carries 900,000 barrels a day of toxic tar sand oil. It endangers the headwaters of the entire Mississippi, as well as wild rice beds of the Anishinaabe, the basis of their food and culture. Pipelines leak, not if, but when. That's the only question. Wet my whistle. So LaDuke and some 20 others were arrested for their civil disobedience against Pipeline 3 charges, which were eventually thrown out. Of the indigenous residents, Winona says, treaties signed between our settler ancestors and theirs, for which we are all responsible, guarantee their right to hunt, fish, and gather. If we allow the wild rice to be destroyed, those treaties are violated. However, Winona LaDuke believes that redemption is possible and is indeed happening. She points out examples of redemption that include the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, a 1990 US federal law that requires museums and federal agencies to return Native American Indian remains, funerary objects, sacred objects, and objects of cultural patrimony to their affiliated tribes and lineal descendants. So I've laid out a lot of really heavy and deeply disturbing things that are happening, but I love that Winona LaDuke points out some of these examples of redemption. So I've put a few of them in here, like the fact that apparently it's like 86 tribes now have reintroduced bison to their lands. And we are probably familiar with that from what's happening here in Montana, including on the Blackfeet Reservation seen here. There's also the removal of the Klamath Dam. When it was put in, the Shasta people were displaced by the flooding and their land taken away, and they were dispersed, given no other land. But now that the dam has been removed, There are dialogues going on about returning some of the reclaimed land to the Shasta people, who are extremely excited and plan to start moving back and restoring cultural practices. And the last example I'm going to give is called it's the Pawnee Seed Preservation Project. So when the Pawnee in Nebraska were forced off their land in the 1870s and forced to move down to Oklahoma, they took with them what they could of their seeds. Their three sisters, the corn, the squash, and the beans, right? As well as sunflowers. They really specialized in these beautiful sunflowers. They took them with them, but they couldn't get the seeds to grow in Oklahoma. It's just not the right ground, not the right climate. And so in recent years, a group of farmers and gardeners in Nebraska have asked for and received small quantities of this Pawnee seed that they are growing with great success and giving to the Pawnee people who have been coming up to Nebraska for, this really makes me cry, for celebratory gatherings. So it's pretty interesting to read about this kind of redemption and basically hope for us, all of us. So suffice it to say that we have so many sources for wisdom. I hope you found value in learning about a few of mine, and through the vision of prophetic leaders and those who value our relationship with the earth, there's opportunities for redemption, healing, and survival, and earth democracy. So, let's see. Well, what do you think? Okay, so we'll take a few minutes for reflections, and I'm not going to let you meditate. If anybody would like to share a reflection, Karen will take the mic to you. And if not, that's okay too.
Any reflections? Let's keep them short. Truly just a big thank you. And I think most of us, the reason it's quiet is everybody's reflecting and thinking internally. But thank you so much. And as a lifelong UU, I was kind of born and raised that way. I think I needed this. I don't think we take enough time. We would think about ancient reasons of UU, but not in reflecting of today. So thank you.
Thank you, Katie, for the service and starting us off with the question of wisdom. And as soon as you asked about reflections, I thought, well, Mother Earth, wisdom is somewhat of a common theme. So with the work that I do, bio and biopsychosocial, philosophical and or theological model of care, it's informed by the longevity, vitality, mentality, intellectuality, and spirituality. And the intellectuality is kind of, seems different to call it hierarchical, but it's informed by the intellectuality, the intuitive, intelligent intellect is wise. And how that is the holistic health and the full circle of a civil ethical atmosphere.
wanted to thank you for this service, but also in particular your preface about the word worship. I had forgotten that it was an Old English term, which means that it is independent of a Judeo-Christian heritage. It's actually an indigenous term from English speakers before they got Latin, which is very exciting. It's like they don't get everything. So that was it was nice to be reminded of that. And also I'm thankful for you telling me about Lynn Margulis, because I was familiar with her work but not her name. When you learn about that in school, they don't tell you all of the people all the time like they should. So it was very useful to learn that about her. And I was struck by this idea that, I had read the other day there are 21 trillion cells in your body that have your DNA. And then there are 21 trillion cells in your body that don't have your DNA. You're half and half. You contain multitudes. And I also wanted to say that I think wisdom, like the metaphor that I prefer for it, is to think of wisdom as an aquifer. And I was not a child and not participating in this Story for All Ages, but that is how I just think about it, this place to draw from and to not deplete and to give back to.
Thank you, Katie. As an organic farmer, this message resonated very much with me and was a message similar to one I was originally planning on giving a month ago before I had a very drastic change of mind. And so, yeah, I really appreciate the framing of everything you did today and the wisdom from bacteria and cells to current indigenous cultures and beyond, because as you said, this is only 3 of our sources.
Cynthia.
Hi guys, Cynthia. There's an older documentary called Dirt, and a lot of you probably already watched it, but it is very good. It talks a lot about the struggle of people in India, which you talked about. And then it's very, very good. And it talks about them trying to reclaim traditional practices with agriculture and not using poisons, and which, like you talked about, there's a lot of people that lose their lives to that horrible cycle. And then also Flow talks about water and how people have, and I love that, I've watched it multiple times. It's a documentary about how water used to be a right, and now they're trying to monetize it and use it. Like Nestle is one of the worst ones, like sucking all the water out of the aquifers and stuff. So.
Thank you, Cynthia. Others? Okay. Moving on.
So we're going to sing a song. It is, will you join me on this journey? There should be inserts with lyrics.
journey. Will you join me on this journey? How I need to hear your voice. So many times I can't find the words. Will you sing to me with your lovely voice? We'll send love
We'll
to the
send
earth,
love, we'll
to the
send
souls
love,
of
we'll
our
send
feet. We'll send love to
We'll
the
send
souls of all the people we meet on this journey. On this journey, we'll help justice to roll on down to the sea, providing the waves so that all can be free on this journey. On this journey, will you join me on this journey? It lightens my heart when I see you smile. Sometimes I am discouraged. Will you just look my way and smile? We'll send love to the earth, to the souls of our feet. We'll send love to the souls of all the people we meet on this journey. On this journey, we'll help justice and roll on down to the sea, providing the waves so that all can be free on this journey. On this journey, will you join me on this journey? I want you there beside me. There are times when I will lose my way. Oh, but you, my friend, you will guide me. We'll send love to the earth, to the souls of our feet. We'll send love to the souls of all the people we meet on this journey. On this journey, we'll help justice to roll on down to the sea, providing the waves so that all can be free on this journey. On this journey, we'll send love. We'll send love on this journey. On this journey, we'll send love. We'll send love on this journey. On this journey, we'll send love to the earth, to the soles of our feet. We'll send love to the souls of all the people we meet on this journey. On this journey, we'll help justice to roll on down to the sea, providing the waves so that all can be free on this journey. On this journey.
Okay, so it's time to extinguish the chalice. The words are in the order of service. Please read with me as Mackenzie extinguishes the chalice. We extinguish this chalice flame, daring to carry forward the vision of this free faith, that freedom, reason, and justice will one day prevail. And it is now the time to end the YouTube recording, so this is an opportunity to privately share your joys and